So to start, I have to say that it was really nice that Capcom hired someone from Fanfiction.net to write the story mode for Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. NetherRealm Studios has been consistently getting better at making stories for their fighting games, with Mortal Kombat having a fairly well-structured narrative over the last 2 games, even if it did require a full-on reboot of the universe for it to make sense. And Arc System Works has done a pretty good job at making interesting stories with the properties they have, even if they're a bit on the long-winded side. So it's very progressive that Capcom let someone that didn't know how to write handle the story mode for their newest game. That's something we don't see nearly enough these days. Okay, that might be a tad mean, but seriously, even Tekken 7, for all its stupidities and kids being thrown off of cliffs, has a better story mode than Infinite does. The story mode for MvC Infinite is effectively some cool character moments loosely kept together by what some might confuse for a plot if they squint their eyes at it. There is an opening, there is a middle, and there is an ending. The heroes even have a lowest point moment in the story for them to come back from and defeat the bad guy. But there's very little keeping these moments together, to the point that it feels like the writers had 2 or 3 ideas that they had to stretch together in order to make a story. It starts off in the middle of the heroes attempting to reach Thanos in a warp version of Asgard meets Able City, but we get zero understanding of what is going on and why we should even care, besides, look, it's Marvel characters and Capcom characters in the same place. Isn't that cool? It's then established that the merged form of Ultron and Sigma is the reason that the Marvel and Capcom universes have combined through the use of the Infinity Stones. And the heroes found out, at some point, that they need to stop them if they don't want Ultron Sigma to have full control of the new reality and kill all organic life. And that's pretty much the entirety of the story.
I shall remove you from that throne, villain!
Fools, our will is law. We will destroy you.
I think when making this game, the people at Marvel and the people at Capcom couldn't agree on how this story mode should play out, with Capcom clearly wanting it to be a dumb fun romp similar to a lot of the Resident Evil and DMC games, but since Marvel has more control over this game's story due to the success of their cinematic universe, they needed their characters to stay on message to advertise for their movies, hence the fact that the Infinity Stones play such a big part in the story. So we get this weird, stilted mess that doesn't seem like it knows what it wants to be. It's because of this disconnect between the Capcom goofiness and the Marvel movie writing that a lot of the characters don't seem consistent with their typical portrayals or the world they're currently in. For example, the entire hero team went to Asgard, I still can't believe that's the name they used, to fetch Thanos so that he can tell them about the Infinity Stones so that they can fetch them and use them against Ultron Sigma. But Iron Man and a good portion of the team don't want him to talk once they got him. So what was the point in retrieving him? A majority of the team didn't even know that Thanos was the goal when they went there, so what kind of mission did they agree to? I have a lot of trouble believing Stark and a good majority of these characters would agree to a mission without knowing what the exact point of it was. You see, there's just these weird little inconsistencies that just don't click once you start to think about it, which is likely why the story throws as much as it can at you. Speaking of Marvel's influence on the story, it's impressive that Marvel was able to replicate their lazy villains into the video game format, as Ultron Sigma is as poorly defined and uninteresting as the movie Ultron.
Will you not bow before your god?
You are no god. You are a fool.
I think merging Ultron and Sigma was likely the first idea the writers had, since they teased him in the very first trailer of the game, and then tried to build the story around it, but have to jump through so many hoops for it to make sense that they kind of forgot to make an actual story with characters to make it work. So Jedha from Darkstalkers somehow crossed over to the Marvel universe, don't ask why, to talk to Death because he's really bothered that Capcom heroes don't die. Clearly he hasn't seen the Mega Man franchise, and somehow he knows about the Infinity Stones despite this game being a reboot, and so he proposes that they merge their realms together in order to create some sort of equilibrium. Death agrees to this and then asks Thanos to help with this project since he's so tied to the Infinity Stones, but he can't get to the Reality Stone because it's in Able City, because somehow it ended up in the Marvel universe, so Thanos has to recruit Ultron to help him get it. Ultron agrees to get the Reality Stone from Sigma, but then the two realize that they have a common goal, so they merge themselves and their universes together with the Reality and Space Stone. And yet Jedha wants to stop them despite getting exactly what he wants? What? I think Jeff Goldblum said it best.
You stood on the shoulders of geniuses to accomplish something as fast as you could, and before you even knew what you had, you patented it and packaged it and slapped it on a plastic lunchbox, and now you're selling it. You want to sell it. Well,
I don't think you're giving us our due credit. Our scientists have done things which nobody's ever done before.
yeah, but your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should.
Honestly, this story is one self-insert character from being actual fan fiction. So there's a giant venom demon attacking the city that Spider-Man, Dante, and Ghost Rider have to fight, while a giant Sigma virus bomb has fallen to Earth that's gonna kill everyone. So Iron Man, X, and Zero use the Infinity Stones to blow them up, and then the Time Stone plays a flashback to Iron Man so that he understands the convoluted plot that Jedha and Death made up to make this all happen, and then he tells Thanos, who gets mad and takes the Satsui no Hado from Ryu to go fight Death. Now, I'm fine with cheesy, over-the-top stories. In fact, some of my favorite anime and games sound absolutely stupid on paper, but cheesy and badly written are two different things. Metal Gear Solid 3 has some absolutely ridiculous moments, but it's still a structured story that makes sense. Again, this is something that Tekken 7 also understands. MvC Infinite simply has no structure to it, and everything happens because of reasons, which could in fact describe the game as a whole. Like, why does Thanos think that the Satsui no Hado is more effective on Death than the stones that have control over reality? Oh, it's because they wanted him to do a Hadouken. Now, I know that making fun of Capcom's writing is like making fun of the kid in class eating glue, considering this is the company that misspelled their own name, but Infinite's story is a next level of bad writing. Things just happen because of reasons, and no thought was put into why. For example, why is Mike Hagar inside a tube in the Umbrella building? Because someone kidnapped him? Okay. Why? Are they not going to answer that? Is it because they needed to have a reason to have Hagar get angry and fight Frank West and Chris Redfield, despite the fact he knows them, and they forgot to wrap up that plot thread almost immediately? Is that why? Answer me!
What is this place?
Quiet. I hear voices.
Fighting game stories are known for contriving BS reasons for characters to fight each other, but this game has to come up with some pretty obtuse ones to have fights that aren't with the 100th Ultron drone. Cap wants to simply unmask Thanos so that he can tell them about the Infinity Stones, while keeping him in his laser prison, which Dr. Light says has the same effects, but Iron Man doesn't like this for some reason, so fight. And Dante and Chun-Li are joining too, despite having no knowledge about who Thanos is and why the two are disagreeing. Ghost Rider won't give Morgana the bone? Let's fight it out. Zero's circuits have been rewritten by the Grandmaster and turned him into oblivion? Let's beat the shit out of him and see if that works. These contrivances wouldn't be a problem if there wasn't, say, something in the story that takes control of characters' minds, forcing them to fight their allies. Oh wait, there is. The Sigma virus that Ultron uses on Thor in the beginning is pretty much forgotten about for majority of the story, until it's used as a ticking clock at the end in order to escalate things. But for some reason, it wasn't used as a way to justify more hero fights. After the heroes lose to Ultron Sigma at the beginning of the story, he should have taken control of almost half of the heroes, and the rest of them have to figure out a way to get their friends back, even if it means fighting them to do so. That would have been good justification for fights and led to some interesting situations.
Sorry, buddy. We don't need another Iron Man on the team. You do you.
To me, the writers seem to think that since this is a story for a crossover game, they can get away with not trying, with the best example being that they skipped the start of the story and jumped right to Act 2. The character storming X-Guard for the first time should have been the turning point in the story when the heroes team up to fight against Ultron Sigma after realizing they're on the same side and there is a bigger threat. But Ultron is too strong for them, so they have to retreat. Clearly, this was the idea for how the story should play out, but someone forgot to put in the first act, where we meet all the characters and, more importantly, the characters of the two universes meet each other. There is a couple offhanded mentions of the convergence, which is the game basically going, yeah, this is a crossover thing, you get the idea, don't worry about the details. But that isn't how you write a full-length story, and it comes off like the writing team was just being lazy about it.
Only the technology of Able City can save you now.
He's not lying. Not about Able City's tech, at least.
How know you this?
Trust me.
So many of the writing issues of this story would have been fixed if we were shown the universes meeting for the first time. You want some good justification for your favorite Marvel and Capcom characters to fight each other? Show them trying to figure out their new surrounding and misunderstanding the intentions of their counterparts from a different universe. You know, that thing that MK vs DC did almost a decade ago. And it's not just about making the characters fight, but we can even see the characters bonding for the first time. Like, Hulk and Ryu fight when they initially run into each other, only to realize their mutual anger issue. And then maybe they go for a coffee at that cute cafe nearby to hash things out. And it's not like this game is too long and couldn't use those extra scenes, because at the end of the day, it's only an hour and 20 minutes if you don't count the fights themselves, which is fairly short compared to most other fighting game stories these days. So again, it seems like the writers were either being lazy and put a story mode in just to appease critics of Street Fighter V for not having one on launch, or someone literally forgot to put the first act of the game in. I'm not sure which one is worse.
My god, we're doomed.
Okay, something nice. Say something nice about this thing. I like the team-up moment between Hulk and Ryu. Actually, the whole Volcanda portion of the game was pretty great, with you having to defend it from incoming attack drones. The Infinity Buster moment's cool, and is probably the most Mega Man we'll get from Capcom for the next few years, so soak it in. Seeing Dante and Iron Man playing off each other is fun, even if Dante looks... In fact, I'm glad that Dante got as much play as he did in this story, despite the fact he looks like an old meth addict. And they even got Dante's signature love of being impaled in. So maybe, just maybe, Capcom hasn't forgotten about him just yet. Now, I'm certain there are people that are going to say I'm putting way too much thought into some dumb story mode, and they may be right, but if we want to see fighting game single-player content get better, we need to hold them accountable. Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite had the potential to have a really fun and inventive story, but feels like it was just put in for the sake of saying that the game has a story mode like all the other big boy fighting games, though didn't want to put in the effort to make it, good. However, despite the fact that everyone's attention is clearly on the Dragon Ball FighterZ hype train, I actually hope Infinite does well enough for a sequel, as there is potential for a good story mode in this universe, as long as the writing team actually tries next time. So to summarize, I'm not mad at you Capcom, just disappointed. I'm certain you can do better if you just apply yourself, but until I start seeing an improvement, you're unfortunately getting an F from me.
What do we do now? We rebuild.
Anyway, that'll do it for today. I'm currently working on one of my bigger videos, plus some stuff for Halloween, and did this as a sort of break from those, but you can expect them soon. If you want to be updated on new videos by yours truly, feel free to subscribe, and like the video if you enjoyed yourself, as it helps the channel and my feelings of self-worth. I also want to give a shout out to Niam Bennett, also known as Fall Dogs on Tumblr and Twitter, as she helped with some of the art in this video. Go check her out, because her art is amazing, and she has some of the hottest takes on Twitter. Speaking of, you can also find me on Twitter too at SuperFoxcade. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.